is a very important topic, the liberalization of the legal market in India. There has been a very incremental development by the Bar Council of India, and which rests a decade-long debate on whether we should allow the foreign firms to open up offices in the Indian market to allow them for a level playing field. So I open up the panel discussions with the common question to each one. How do you view this historical move? Do you think it is a welcome step, but it's too little too late?
Hi, everybody. Yeah. So thanks, Monica, and thank you for having me here. I feel that yes, it's too little, too late. But then, given the Indian history and what we have, the Advocates Act, which is a very old act, almost 6-7 decades old, and then the judgments of Supreme Court and Bar Council and Bombay High Court and Madras High Court judgments. So I feel that A.K. Balaji and other judgments. I don't think so that Bar Council could have done anything more. But then, therefore, there's a need for a very large-scale change in this. And I have just one feeling that this fear that if we open up a market, it is going to create a lot of issues in our job market for lawyers. I think it's a very, very unfounded fear. As we were discussing earlier also, that in the GC market, the in-house counsel market, they're still open. This competition is still open. Anyone can come and become an in-house counsel. Now, tell me a single example whereby there are players of foreign origin or foreign national who have taken the in-house counsel market. So I think so this is a very unfounded fear, and the steps is too little, too late.
Thank you. I agree with you, Mr. Shastry. I believe it's a step in the right direction, however late it may be, but it's more like a knee-jerk reaction. I think it had to come with a lot more to allow foreign law firms or foreign lawyers to practice into India without having a proper training for our lawyers, without having continued legal education and things like that that would allow Indian lawyers and Indian law firms to really compete. I think puts us in somewhat of a disadvantage if foreign law firms were to enter, though that looks pretty unlikely because I think there is a lot more clarification required on the question of reciprocity as well. Because when you say it is reciprocal, how many Indian law firms are really working in foreign countries? There aren't that many. So I think that goes again to the question of training, to the question of upskilling, continued legal education, which is primarily something that Bar Council of India should look into and is part of their job, but so far is lacking.
Roop, what's your take on it?
I think the entry of foreign firms is a welcome step. It was long awaited, way back, 20 years back. We used to look forward to it, being youngsters, that we hope that foreign law firms come into India and we'll get better opportunities. It is a welcome step, but yes, on reciprocal basis. And our lawyers, who are also very well trained, should get equal opportunities in other jurisdictions to practice law. Maybe, foreign lawyers, if they, as of now, they are not permitted to practice Indian law in the Indian jurisdiction. They can practice foreign law in Indian jurisdiction. So if it is on reciprocal basis, I think if they are to come up to speed to Indian judicial and Indian legal system, there should be some exams. Similarly, like in Canada or in US, you have to give those exams to come up to speed. It can be on reciprocal basis. Opening any sector is always welcome. You learn more. If you learn from each other, you learn from different jurisdictions. So that's my take around it.
Okay. Parul?
Yeah, so yes, I agree with Roop and all the fellow panelists. Yes, it's been due for a long time. A lot of discussions, a lot of debates. It is a good timing for it to come. It was long due. And I feel that yes, it is gradual. It's a baby step, and rightly so. Depending on the maturity of the market, you gradually open up every sector. FDI also opens up like this. So the checks and balances that right now BCI has placed have rightly placed, and I think it's a good direction. It's a good start.
Mr. Vij? Yes.
Yeah, good evening. To me, it's the right step. Is it late? Yes. Will it achieve great things? I don't know, because I suppose foreign lawyers are already in India. They're already advising a lot of clients. So I don't know what's changed. So is this going to bring a material change? I'm not sure. But I think surely it is a step in the right direction. I'm sure there were issues we know of Bombay, Madras, and the Supreme Court judgment particularly. So till 2018, there was a kind of a court view that you can't have foreign law firms come here and practice. So I think, and foreign lawyers as well. So I think from 18 to 22, 23, it's taken a while, but I think it's pretty good to start with. Reciprocity was important. I think when you allow foreign law firms, lawyers to practice here, advise on foreign laws, you should be allowing Indian law firms, lawyers to deliver similar services on Indian law in those countries as well. So to me, that's an important piece. It will bring quite a, to me, I think it's really going to bring some changes, but that's going to happen over a period of time till we don't have much clarity here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I do believe that it is a step in the right direction, but it is too little. A lot more needs to be done. I believe that the intention of BCI was to have like a tick in the box. And the reason I feel so is because today India is the 5th largest economy, and we are looking to be the 3rd largest economy, considering that recession is hitting in a lot of other countries. With that aspect, opening foreign law firms, I believe that the idea would have been that foreign companies would also definitely come to India and have greater FDI opportunities in India, and therefore it was necessary to have foreign law firms in India. But in terms of the step, a lot more needs to be done. The rules are definitely not adequate. They need to be improvised. So that's my thought on it.
I must confess, when in the speaker room, we were very charged up. I don't know why we have such a muted response. But nevertheless, I think we are warming up. So, my view is that why should a legal sector be equated to a nuclear energy sector? That it should not be opened up. Why are we being so conservative? That is a question which has always bothered me. If I look at our own general counsel profession, which, the trajectory since 1991, when the economic liberalization started, I think all of us who are GCs in the room, we have adapted to either we have replaced foreign lawyers in India or we work at par with foreign lawyers in India. We have no inhibitions, no competition, no fear of competition. So I really do not know why, and by the way, we are lawyers, although the Bar Council of India doesn't think we are lawyers, but of course we are lawyers, because we do advise on a broader range of issues than what a traditional lawyer would advise, because in a company, when we are advising our board of directors, it's everything from legal L to L. It's not about a competition lawyer. It's not about an employment lawyer. So since we do a lot of work on legal, I think that fear of competition has never been inside us. Ever since we started to embark on a trajectory of economic liberalization. I think that similar sense has to prevail today when Bar Council of India is looking at a trajectory or is looking at a sector. It has to make an economic sense. Every professional service in this country, whether it's legal or any other, has to have economic sense, for which I definitely believe whatever is being done is not even a drop in the ocean. I'm very sorry to say this, but at least it's a start. But the question is this all, or whether we will see more liberalization in opening of the legal sector? I definitely believe so it's not about what UK does, what US does. It's about what India wants to do. If we are thinking about 3 trillion, how many trillion economy? 5 trillion economy. So how will we get there unless we are conservative in our thinking in terms of what lawyers can do in India? So I think that 5 trillion economy will not happen with a mindset of keeping our lawyers' hands tight. There has to be competition in this sector. That's what I think.
Yeah, that is true. And Mr. Vij and Shikha pointed out, rightly so, that the Bar Council of India, the window is half open. And you've been, saying that, a lot needs to be done. So could you please elaborate what more can be done by the BCI? What more steps after this?
If you're talking about in terms of legal applicability of those rules, they are not applicable because the central government has not notified them, has not given their approval. That is the first step of it. Second step is that none of the stakeholders were ever invited to provide their comments to those rules. So I believe that the first step that BCI should have done or should do is invite comments. And of course, the rules need to be revised, they need to be relooked. And that's the first step.
Okay, so BCI did not take, SILF and Mr. Vij, SILF and the Delhi Bar Council and other stakeholders.
So it's not specifically that I'm identifying a society, I'm just talking about the lawyer community in general. Generally, any act or any, ordinance which is called for is invited, you invite comments from all the stakeholders. That was not done. The rules that came out were not that anybody was surprised, but nobody was taken into confidence or no consideration was given to anybody's thoughts. That's it.
And we've seen counter views immediately after you had this notification.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yes.
clarification was out as well.
Yes,
So I
yes.
think consensus was important. Probably some time should have gone there as well. I mean, it's a big time issue. I'm not too sure if, sorry to disagree, if opening legal profession very quickly will help you reach 5 trillion very quickly. So I don't see a connection, honestly. But surely, it required consensus. It required stakeholders to be kind of taken into confidence. Maybe I think it would have been acceptable better. And I'm not too sure, because the view that is coming generally from foreign law firms is they don't see any great concession or great reason to be coming on the basis of these confused, on the basis of this confused notification. So I think that's putting it off. But I'm sure it's going to come. There will be more clarities. And as Shikha, you just pointed out, you need a better consensus. I think that was important. Yeah.
So one thing which I would also like to say, so if we are talking about a reform in a legal sector, just coming up with this notification without a roadmap of what would be in future. So for example, for a foreign firm, is there anybody from a foreign firm in this room? Oh, you are. So unless, we give them visibility of what's going to happen in next 5 years or 10 years, is something they would like to see. Not that we just started with this and there is an end to this. So a long-term view is something what was needed.
Yes. Yeah. So, Mr. Prasad, I'll ask you a question about, what will be the long-term ramifications for corporates and, lawyers and incumbent firms? What do you think how will it impact all the stakeholders?
The short answer is frustration if there is no clarity on the reforms. Okay. I do believe there has to be, a level playing field for India's context today when we are talking about India as the only growth engine for the world. There is a lot of support from legal community that is needed. The ramification would be if the law firms, foreign firms are allowed, not in this form, I don't think they will come. But if they do, I don't think there is anything, they are making any threat to existing firms today. Yeah. Even if they were allowed to come full-fledged, be allowed to practice, I think it will open up the space for the corporate sector so that there will be high-quality legal advice. Yeah. And I don't think they're going down to trial courts. Okay. So there is no threat on the trial courts level. So I don't think things will only improve if this is allowed, rather than there is anything downside to it.
Mr. Vij, what do you think, will be the potential challenges for the GCs if this happens?
No, I think GCs of global companies anyways are taking advice from all the foreign law firms. So they're already onboarded. To me, I personally think what could have happened and what could have driven this is you've seen arbitration happening largely in Singapore, US, and London. So possibly it looks like, it seems to me like, that this is intended to get some of, and we have data, I don't have that data, but there is data enough to say that most of your Indian companies in international arbitrations in Singapore, majority you see Indian parties.
Yes.
So I think the intent is also to create a positive, may not be enough, but it is to create that positive feel that, you know, India can be a destination for international commercial arbitration as a place, as a venue. So I think that was the larger intent, to get it out very quickly. So I am kind of eating back my words, consensus, etc. But I think the intent was very quickly to get to that. And the FDI piece, you know, create that positive signal. Not enough though. But coming back to GCs, really, I think it's a positive step, though the law firms have, none of the law firms have shown any keen interest in the present form to come or set up a shop here. So that's not going to happen in the short run, seems like.
Okay. Parul, do you think this phased manner opening up, you know, when do you think it will eventually open up? And if you think, do you think the environment is conducive for them to come and invest heavily?
Yeah, so I think I'll answer the first question first. So I think the question is not about whether, you know, partial opening or fully opening. I think the focus has to be on whether, you know, lawyers as a community, whether all of us can coexist. You know, as an in-house counsel, I would want to, you know, be able to, for a smaller matter, I would want to go to a smaller law firm or individual lawyer.
Yes.
For a large stake matter, I would want to go to a large law firm, but I want to keep that flexibility.
Yeah.
Even if we look at the startup ecosystem with, you know, with the FDI investors sitting in, you know, the startups should have the flexibility, the companies should have the flexibility to engage any law firm, you know, good at that particular sector. For example, boutique law firms for any niche sector, as against being mandated to engage, you know, magic circle firms as, you know, mandated by their foreign investor counterparts. So the idea is that, you know, all of us should mutually coexist. I mean, you can take examples of tenders where, you know, lawyers are, you know, required to be empaneled. Suddenly, with any large law firm coming in, are we killing the smaller players if, you know, if suddenly it opens up? So yes, it has to be a slow and a gradual process. Like I said, FDI also opens up like that. The liberalization happens step by step. So long as, and you know, just to come back on the same point, that even today, you know, nothing stops corporate India from seeking advice from foreign players. Just because somebody does not have an office in India will not stop corporate India to then seek advisory from foreign law firms, whether in terms of law or even strategizing their, you know, foreign structures. So knowledge has no barriers, and knowledge cannot be curtailed, you know, just by having entry-exit rules. You know, so long as, you know, all players, service industry is coexisting, so long as no one's livelihood is touched, so long as there's equal opportunity for everybody to thrive, you know, and so long as knowledge can be shared, everyone can service everyone. I think any form of opening should be good.
Okay. Yeah. Roop, do you think it is this move is for, you know, to making India the international arbitration hub? This is a move towards it.
This will definitely make other countries look towards India. We are already a growing economy, and I think it is the need of the hour. We have a cost advantage as far as offering a seat of arbitration is concerned. And apart from that, we are a 1.3 million lawyers country, which makes us legal profession in India is very popular. So it makes us the third largest nation as far as the legal profession is concerned. The talent is there, and we have GBS, the General Business Services Centers, in a lot of multinational companies, where GBS services for legal services has also started, where we are exporting services. So the talent is there, the cost advantage is there, we deal with diverse, complicated issues, and I feel the Indian legal brains are one of the best brains in the world. That is what I would like to, I would like to kind of appreciate the legal brains, look at our judgments which come out. So we, I think when we have all this ecosystem going in our favor, we are definitely going to be the most favored nation as far as setting up international arbitration hubs is concerned.
Okay. Yeah, the government, is doing a lot to make India an international arbitration hub. Even the Attorney General of India, in an interview with us exclusive, he had said that, we are making all efforts to make India the hub. I mean, they don't see Singapore as a competition. It's too small, or a Dubai or a Zurich. I think India is a large country and
I'd just like to add there, in case we are to make it as a hub, we need to kind of make it more simpler. And right now in arbitrations, we usually follow CPC, that is Code of Civil Procedure. So we need to get in a more simplified form of procedures, make it more agile, and then I think there's nothing stopping us.
Yes, that's true. So, Ojasvi, I have a Ojasvita. When a foreign law firm comes to India, they have to register with BCI. And do you think there'll be a monitoring mechanism by BCI? There should be, and to make sure that everything is followed in law and letter and spirit.
You're absolutely right. There is no such monitoring mechanism that is so far, postulated or proposed. And I think that is why, in my initial remark, I said this was a knee-jerk reaction. I agree to the line of thought that Mr. Prasad started with. The intention here is to go from the 5th largest economy to the 3rd largest economy and liberalize and, but that intention, will it be reached by allowing foreign lawyers and foreign law firms to come into India and take the revenue outside India? Or do we need to really work on making sure that the Indian lawyers get hired, even if it's a foreign law firm? There's so many Indian lawyers, like Roop said, that go out to foreign law firms and work. But that does not really happen. And to give you some context, I think Mr. Vij talked about 1.3 million lawyers, or was it Parul, I believe, who said that. So 1.3 million lawyers are there in the US, and a total industry side, I think, is about 135 billion US dollars. Whereas in India, with almost the same number of lawyers, I think it is something around 8 or 10 billion. And this is 2015 figure, so it would have changed by now. But then the per lawyer revenue that comes to the government or comes to the economy cannot improve unless you first work on upskilling the lawyers, unless you first work on building the kind of infrastructure that Indian law firms are able to compete with foreign law firms. And I would, on that point, actually slightly disagree with what Roop said. I don't think there is a lot of comparison as far as pricing is concerned. Indian law firms are pretty much pricing the same amount that are there by the Magic Circle law firms. But where we differ, and I'm saying this as an in-house lawyer, as a general counsel, if I have one law firm, and this is a live example from my previous organization, we worked across 110 countries, and we decided to partner with one single Magic Circle law firm. And in all those 110 countries, we go to only that law firm or its partner firm.
Okay.
And that is only possible when you are sure of the quality of work that you get from that law firm. So I think for this to be a reality, for this to really achieve the goal of liberalization, there has to be a lot of work to be done on upskilling of Indian lawyers and to come up with more clarity on how are you going to monitor that only foreign law is being practiced and not Indian law.
So you said you'll choose a Magic Circle law firm, even if you're willing to pay the international rates.
So the challenge here is, this is what I also said earlier, that how many Indian law firms do you have that are operating outside India or are operating in the majority of the foreign countries? If I want to really sign up with an Indian law firm, is there a comparable Indian law firm that is present in 110 countries? No, not even 50. I mean, I think some for Indian law firms have satellite offices in the US and Dubai and Singapore or London, but that's very limited.
So there'll be a talent and price wars. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Dr. Mukul, I'll come to you. It's a commercially viable decision. So, do you think the clients in the Indian market will pay higher rates to the international standards, international rates?
No, I'd beg to differ with what Ojasvita has said. So one of the KRAs for the GCs has always been cost. And wherever I have worked in the past 20 years, cost has been one of the most significant factor while deciding for law firm. Obviously, there are certain matters, certain cases whereby cost becomes secondary, but then there are few. But in majority of cases, we have to see what the costs are also of any litigation or any advice. However, just throwing some light on what the discussion was going on. First of all, so I beg to differ with Mr. Vij here that we cannot become a $1 trillion economy or $5 trillion economy just by this legal service. It plays a very important role. Like for any other services, whether it be financial services or audit services or any other service for that matter, legal service is a very important role. And if you open this market up, the same fear was there in 1991 also, that if you open the market, whether the Indian wealth is going to go abroad. I don't think so that even that fear is also well-founded. The economic principle says the more you open, the more competitive you are, ultimately it is going to benefit your own country. Now, just to understand it in a sense, as Ojasvita said that there are 103 million lawyers in India, but our size is pretty less. First of all, whenever we talk about sizes in any legal market, we only consider the litigation side and the non-litigation side. We completely ignore the other two sides, which are the in-house counsel market and the market of legal academia, which also is taking a very, very large steps toward becoming a very big market in India, and now legal tech. So even these things are completely ignored when these numbers are floated. Now, the only thing is we have 70,000 lawyers who graduate every year in India. Now, are they all employable? They talk that engineers are not employable. We have so many engineering institutes. The same problem with lawyers also. Now, where will you get these 7,000 lawyers employed? There aren't enough spaces. The law firms are few. If you see, there are, 50, 70 top law firms, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, with an average size of 20, 30, 40 lawyers. That makes only 2,000 or 3,000 lawyers in total. In-house counsel, again, some 4,000, 2,000 people. And litigation lawyer, again, some 3, 4, 5,000 lawyers across the country, which will have some standing. So what about the rest? And these are the overall numbers. So where these 70,000 lawyers are going to get placed every year? They cannot be. The only way how we can encourage them to be one of the best in the market is to ensure that foreign law firms, they open their shops in India, and it is good for them, for the Indian lawyers, that they can also learn from their peers what is happening. And I totally agree with the thought here that Indian lawyers, Indian talent is no less. We are very competitive, and believe me, whenever the Indians are going anywhere in the world, they are facing discrimination. Still, they are being highly competitive. So in our own land, we can defeat anybody, in any field, not only legal field. Like Indian cricket team has always been unbeatable in Indian grounds. So very similar logic applies to Indian lawyers also, I feel so. So therefore, these fears are unfounded for, and I feel that commercially a viable step can only be happen when we really open it up. These fears are unfounded, and the fears of the law firms or the lawyers or the self or those associations are totally unfounded. And we don't really hit that opening the market is always beneficial for the Indian lawyers.
Okay. Shikha, talking of talent, price, we spoke of price wars, and, do you think there's a risk of losing talent? A big challenge will be retention of talent. Once the foreign law firms come, they will...
See, I think competition is always good for any profession. Of course, there's going to be, risk or fear of losing talent. Attrition is going to increase, but I think it'll only happen initially. In the sense, because any foreign law firm which will set up base in India is definitely going to look to hire, and they will be hiring, but that's going to be an initial surge of jobs. After that, it will, of course, settle down, and that's always the case. Now, whether you're also able to retain that talent, or if you've hired somebody in a hurry and you would like to, so of course, it's going to be job creation, as as was stated earlier, but of course, it will, of course, also increase the the fees of the lawyers will also go up, the salaries will also go up. Competition is always good. So that's what I think.
So what happens to the Best Friends Alliance? I mean, the law firms, Clifford Chance with AZB and Linklaters, they had all Best Friends Alliance with law firms, Indian law firms. So what happens to it after the opening up of the market?
So again, I'm not sure how many foreign law firms are interested in actually setting up base. There have been some interest by certain law firms who have made a statement that they are interested and looking forward to this step. But of course, that best friend alliance will of course take a hit. If they are opening up their own offices, the referral work that an Indian law firm gets from the foreign law firm, of course, that will definitely get impacted. But in terms of how many foreign law firms are really interested in setting up base is something to be seen.
Yes, yes. Mr. Vij, you pointed out, that there were apprehensions post the notification by other stakeholders. There was no consensus. So I just wanted to ask you that, SILF has been saying, that we need amendments in the Advocates Act. So how soon, what do you think, the amendment should be?
I think that's Sylph's view.
Yeah.
So I'm not able to comment. But I think as Shikha, you just pointed out, this needs to be passed, to my understanding, by this government, by the central government. So until that happens, I don't see it will see force of law, and it will really be seen by the foreign law firms as, because I've spoken to a lot of partners in the foreign law firms who believe that this notification itself is not sufficient. It requires amendment to the act. So therefore, until that happens, they're not going to be sure on their decision. So while they've shown interest, and by the way, they continue to work and support their clients on foreign law already, if not out of India, out of wherever. So I think it's not impacting them immediately. So amendment is necessary. How soon that will happen, I don't know. I don't think it's happening very soon, for whatever reasons. But that's required, yeah.
Yeah. Parul, I just wanted to ask you, do you think the foreign law firms would be skeptical relating to tax issues? They had faced tax issues in the past.
Yes, well, it's been a
liaison offices.
It's always been, the tax aspects have always been controversial. Yeah, unless clear steps are taken. Of course, that tax will play an important role for them. To consider whether to set up shops in India and whether it's going to be viable. Of course, it's going to be a big, factor that they need to take into consideration. The viability and the profitability ultimately will, of course, tax will play a big role in that.
Roop, would you like to add something?
I think most important is the level playing field. As GCs, we are already looking in the regions, looking after the regions and advising the regions, and we don't feel restrained in advising in other jurisdictions. So I think Indian lawyers should also be allowed to be practice. They should be allowed to practice in other jurisdictions, and it should be a level playing field. As I earlier mentioned, if at all they have to be brought up to speed, they can give few exams, but not many exams. Lawyer skills are more or less same. They are common. We don't feel awkward while speaking to any foreign lawyers. We speak the same language. They are common law jurisdictions. So I think at least as far as common law jurisdictions are concerned, they should not be much of a constraint for Indian lawyers to practice in those jurisdictions.
Okay. Ojasvita and Dr. Shastry and Dr. Prasad, any last comments before we throw open, for questions to the audience?
Last comment is always the statistics. How many chartered accountants do we have in this country? How many chartered accountants in this country? Sorry? Yeah, and we have foreign audit firms in this country. We have so much more lawyers. We do not have foreign firms. So that's a big anomaly. That's all I can say.
I mean, that's, even that's why just a comment on that is that, like I said, if, look at the startup ecosystem, look at the GCs, Big Four then set the standard. They say, need to have a Big Four. For every transaction, you need to have a Big Four. Big Four has to sign off. Where are the local law, CA firms who are then, is there a level playing field? I mean, I think that was the whole question.
So on that point, I think, yes, Big Fours are there, but then a lot of CA law firms and etc. are also thriving because they also have a lot of continued education. So CAs have to continuously update themselves, upgrade themselves. So there are CA firms, Indian CA firms that are advising MNCs. There is nothing like continued legal education for lawyers, in-house lawyers. I mean, honestly, this is not a very equal panel. There are 6 in-house and 1 law firm, but the 6 of us who are from in-house are not even recognized as lawyers. So there is no...
We have I wanted to make
Dr.
the same.
Mukul, we have Dr. Mukul, a PhD, Akhil, Prasad, a PhD. There is a continuous learning.
No, but I think she's raised a right point. We are not advocates, so as to say. You know, you talked of categories like litigation and non-litigation, etc. So what are we advising if we are not advocates, so as to say, from an Advocates Act perspective? So I don't know where we stand at the first place.
Yeah, so just one small thing to add there. So what we are advising is we're advising law, lit, non-lit, and the commercial part to it also.
By the way, we are taking it up. So this may be another reform that GC should also be recognized practice area. We are taking it up. Yeah.
So, questions? Oh, great. Mike.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vineet. I'm an advocate practicing in Delhi. My query is for Ms. Parul Sabharwal, is with regard to the judgment of the Supreme Court in BC vs. A.K. Balaji. The Supreme Court said foreign lawyers can practice in India. There are 3 aspects. Number 1 is you have to be enrolled with the State Bar Council. So if a lawyer practices in India, so he has to be a member of the State Bar Council. So first, is there a requirement of amendment in the Advocates Act? That's number 1. Number 2 is with regard to the Code of Conduct. See, the Code of Conduct for Indian lawyers, you have to follow the rules of the Bar Council of India. But who will deal with the foreign law firms? They will be dealt by their own country. So then again, you need amendment in the BCI rules. And the third is the matter of reciprocity. So, ma'am, what are your comments on that? So, do you think BCI has to make amendments to the first the central government has to make an amendment to the Advocates Act, and the BCI has to frame rules in consonance with that amendment, so that the foreign law firms burgeon in India, which is also a welcome step.
Absolutely, that's very rightly spoken, and of course, the panel also spoke about it. That yes, amendments are absolutely essential, and without it, it's the rules are not effective, and accordingly, BCI then has to give chart out. And thrash out these kind of issues which are there. Right now, it is at a very macro level, at a very top level, which some amendments have come. So definitely a thought through amendment process has to happen.
I think the change has to be, the Advocate Act today is like the Indian Telegraph Act. So it has to be a complete new vision about a Legal Practitioners Act rather than an Advocate Act.
Hopefully it will happen soon. We've not seen labor courts come into force still. It's been how many years? The rules haven't come substantially, so I don't know, it's not happening very soon.
Questions, yeah? Please give the mic.
Hi, may I ask the next question?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, so when the panel certain members of the panel spoke about how continuous legal education is a must for India to be able to compete, Indian lawyers to be able to compete. What are the 3 areas do you feel require reform urgently to bring Indian lawyers / law firms on par to be able to compete with foreign lawyers in India? Any one of you could take it.
I can attempt to begin with. So, to become a lawyer in India, the mandate as per BCI is 30 days of internship, and then you pass the bar exam besides qualifying your LLB, right? Which is grossly insufficient. You cannot learn the law, or like Mr. Shastry said, 70,000 law graduates graduate every year. I think almost all of them pass the bar exam because it's an open book exam. But are they really employable? Are they really skilled enough? And that's where the question of legal education or the question of training comes in place. In the US, UK, you have training contracts. So before you become a solicitor, before you write your qualifying exam, you have to go through a training contract or some sort of training. And that again is very unstructured, but that there is no mandate whatsoever in India for that. I think you have a follow-up question. Other than education.
So there are many things other than CLE. You have see it all depends on what is your principal area of practice is. If you want to be a litigation lawyer, you have to learn the art of litigation, and thereby you have to continuously learn there. If you are a transaction lawyer, all the M&A pieces, maybe the finance part of it you should learn. But right now there is no structured approach to it. That is the problem. Otherwise, lawyers are doing that. I have met many lawyers who are so financially savvy that they can give a run of money to even CAs. So it all depends on individual also. But right now there is no structured approach to it. That's what the panel was saying.
Can you please
And
pass the
to
mic?
add to, sorry.
Okay, yes.
To add to that, I think it's already pointed out, things like advertising. Indian lawyers are not allowed to advertise about themselves. A foreign law firm, to add to your question, I think if they come to India, they have to abide by Indian laws, Indian Advocates Act. So they should also not be allowed to advertise. But for a foreign law firm that's operating in 30, 40 other countries, does it make a difference that it is not advertising in India, because all its clients are foreign clients where it is already advertising. So I think the right approach would be to allow Indian lawyers to also, to some extent, make it, then again it boils down, we were having a discussion before this, is legal sector a profession, or is it really just another financial sector for, from a GDP perspective? So those are some of the reforms I think that are really required.
Can you please pass the mic? The mic, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question. Yeah.
No, can she? She's being. After that, you can. Okay, thanks.
Sorry. My name is Pavani Reddy, and I'm a solicitor. I'm coming from UK, from Clyde & Co. And I look after India in Clyde & Co. The question from the panel members, the consensus I got is that it's a welcome news. Everybody is seeing it as a welcome news. But what we are at the moment lacking, I think there is also a consensus about this, is that there is no clarity as to what the rules require even any foreign law firm to come. When it comes to reciprocity, I would say there is a reciprocity already in place, of course, depending on which jurisdiction you are talking about. If you're discussing about UK, for example, there are already rules. There are a lot of Indian law firms who tested the market. They did not find it viable commercially, and they just decided to come back, or they did not operate. It's an individual, organization decision. But there is no bar for any Indian lawyer or a law firm to come. And the process is so simple in UK that when you go to UK, you go to the law society and say, I am an Indian lawyer, this is my certificate, and I want to practice Indian law. The process is only less than 7 days to register as a foreign lawyer to practice Indian law. Of course, when you want to practice English law, then the game changes. It's a different dynamics. That is what I think we are seeking on this side of land when we say in India, if a foreign lawyer is coming and saying that I would like to practice Indian law, the rules must be in such a way it should not put any danger for the local fraternity, legal fraternity, whether it's a practitioner or a law firm. The rules must be so clear that if you would like to practice Indian law, at the moment I do not believe that is what the Bar Council rules envisage. At the moment it is only saying foreign lawyers, foreign law. Now, that clarity needs to be there. But of course, the rule that has come out, it's quite surprising because this is something I have been following up very closely with the English Bar Council, Law Society and the Ministry of Justice in UK for the past 20 years. And that was a shock for us because we are members. Daniel is here with me in the UK. We have a committee there at the Law Society, Indian Lawyers Committee. And we've been discussing for almost 20 years now. And it came out as a surprise. So the question is that where do we, if we are saying this, that everybody is welcoming that, but I see that everybody is, the fear factor, why is that fear? Why would it be any different from your perspective that any accounting company like BDO or FTI, whoever is coming, they have come in the same way. Why should it be different for any law firms or a lawyer?
I totally agree with you. I say this, and at least I believe this also, that there's no fear factor at all. Let's open the market and let's let there be a level playing field. Interestingly, the irony of the current rules, which the BCI has issued on 10th of March 2023. Interestingly, if you're an Indian lawyer, registered with the State Bar Council, Indian qualified, and if I join a foreign law firm which is registered in India, I lose my Indian advocate status completely. So that is a very interesting, I don't know from where, what they have thought for. So lots to be done, and I guess, so I totally agree with what you are saying.
So one last question. Yes.
Yeah. I have a question and also a comment here that, we have been talking about the introduction of this new, about the entry of law firms in India, foreign law firms in India. So at the outset, we are talking about the, this not being a great move in terms of the technical aspects which are missing into the whole exercise. However, is it not time that we realize that if you look at any, like I was listening to Mr. Prasad said this very great angle about the big fours being in India. Look at the entire profession of finance and consulting. I think in the last 2.5 decades, it has really gone up leaps and bounds. That is one. Secondly, if you look at young lawyers, for example, if you look at company secretaries, chartered accountants, they've got a very good space, I would say. They've settled their jobs and their professions while consulting, while working with these consulting firms. However, I would say again, the Indian law firms have done a great job with young lawyers. But the point is, this is something which is a great opportunity. I think now the moment, if there's a notification which is not that great in all respects, don't you feel it is time to, fill in the gaps and promote this fully? Because let's face it, all young lawyers are not getting jobs in corporates. I am a GC at a corporate and I know that. If you look at lawyers who are competent, how many of them end up with jobs in tier 1 firms? The moment you have foreign law firms, you may start up with working even in a foreign law, for example. Today, that is what the notification says, but that can be a great entry point. We were talking about these, business services which Indian companies are giving from here, from in India. I belong to a company where I have this division. They're doing it for finance, they're doing it for HR, but believe me, I do not feel that I have enough bandwidth to do that for law. Having been given the opportunity, why don't you start this up? But no, because the talent pool is not there. So I think from Cyril, I think, I don't remember, the ma'am said that fair enough. I think even the tier 1 firms are ready to have that. Because those, so my question is, the entire discussion should be more of encouragement and entry and, not talking about the problem statement. I think there was an appeal. So this is, as I said, this is more of a comment and also a question to, encourage this. I think I'm using this forum to probably say that this is a welcome step. And if we are having this panel discussion, I think we should create an environment wherein this happens in a big way and in a successful way.
So we are encouraging it. So the entire panel is quite unanimous in this, that this is a welcome step. What we are saying is it is too little, too late. That's all we are saying. And the way how it has come out without consultation, so that is what we are saying, the problem area, but definitely we want things to come up. And as Dr. Prasad has rightly said, our first step is to make GCs, make amendment in advocate, make GCs advocate first of all. That's the first thing. And then encourage all these things, encourage more competition. So that is what we are saying from here, that we have to encourage more and more competition.
I think just to add, you're right. And I think all of us have said this is the right step in the right direction. So there is no going back now. The good thing it is that happened. So I think you'll only move forward. No, there is nothing going back. So I think let's look at it. Let's contribute to see how do we take it forward and expedite this actually. So bring up opinions, push it. Have your foreign law firms push, and kind of not using the right words, but just put pressure and see how do we get it done quickly. But it has to happen. So it's going forward. It's not coming back now.
Okay. So
I have one quick question, and I know maybe this
Okay.
is
Okay, one last question.
wider reaching than what the panel can opine on, but from the 90s, we've been quite a protectionist, licensed Raj. It's taken us all these years to get here. How much longer do you think we will need to wait? I know maybe this is wider than what the audience can opine on, the panel can opine on, but just your thoughts. It's such a august panel.
So Preeti, you are a GC, so you are not restricted. That is the good news. I think it's about the practice side of it which is restricted, which definitely has to open up. They have to keep pace with the economy. That's what I said in my opening comments, and I think you agree with it. So that is my question also, because with this notification, there is no clarity what next. Is this all? If this is all, there is no hope.
Any thoughts on timing?
No, this is nothing actually. I mean, we're already doing it, so I know it was already there. But to my mind, how much of opposition this sees from interested quarters is also important. We saw that immediately after the notification came. People talking, I mean, some people, reversed their stand as well. So how much of that will happen? But to my mind, I think it should fall into place in a year to year and a half time. I see that happening personally. In a year to year and a half time.
You think the
To add to that, I think the lawyer from Clyde & Co. made this comment. I don't think it's right to say it has taken us 23 years to come here, because it took us all by surprise. It was not like a consultative process that we are working towards. It just came out of the blue. So how can you ever predict a timeline for something that is that unpredictable?
Maybe we need to work on the lobbies. Our lobbies are not as...
It's illegal. Lobbying is illegal in India.
It needs to be pushed. Somebody has to take it up with the government that this is not enough. I'm sure the law firms are saying this. The foreign firms are saying this, not the law firms are saying this. They are welcoming it, by the way. But I think that push has to come from somebody.
So with that, we end the session. Thank you so much, all the speakers.